Okay, that's our cue. Hi, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, and welcome to those folks online. I want to let everybody know to mute their microphone so as not to interrupt the presentation. Hopefully I won't have to go in and do that for you. There will be about a 30 to 40 minute presentation and then followed by a discussion. I'm going to start off with a brief intro to the Africa Biodiversity Collaborative Group. My name is Rebecca Goodman. And then I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly Holbrook at the Nature Conservancy, who's then going to introduce our featured speaker today with the Northern Rangelands Trust. That's from Lalampaa. So just a few quick things about ABCG. We are a community of conservation practitioners and cross-sector partners that together work to share experiences and translate our knowledge into practical tools and approaches to address high priority and emerging conservation issues facing the continent, and to promote best practices widely for integration into programming and the development sector, and for informing policy. We are currently at 7 members, the African Wildlife Foundation, Conservation International, the Jane Goodall Institute, the Nature Conservancy, the Wildlife Conservation Society, the World Resources Institute, and the World Wildlife Fund. So our overall purpose is to increase our collective conservation impact on the continent by advancing understanding of critical biodiversity conservation challenges and their solutions throughout sub-Saharan Africa. And we do that through an integrated approach, working with a network of local partners to identify knowledge gaps, developing knowledge and generating approaches to address those challenges with our partners, synthesizing and disseminating that new knowledge, applying lessons and tools to produce tangible results through pilot studies, and then validating that knowledge, which provides an evidence base that then goes towards that general knowledge where we can then identify new gaps, and we keep going round and round. So it's an integrated cyclical model. Currently, we're focusing on a couple different areas. They kind of broadly fit within 2 thematic areas of conservation planning and global health linkages to biodiversity conservation, and then that's split into a number of task groups. So we have land use management, global change impacts, which is looking at the indirect impacts on climate change on human livelihoods through their behavior, and community-based forest management, which is a new area we're getting into, which also feeds into the large area of conservation planning. And then within global health linkages, PHE, population, health, and environment, freshwater conservation, and water sanitation and hygiene, and integrating those by including biodiversity indicators into the WASH area, and gender integration, which is a core pillar kind of supporting all of our work. Currently, we are fully funded by USAID and in a 5-year agreement which began in late 2015 and extends through 2020 now, and that's $8 million over 5 years. And let's see, I think that's where I'll leave it. There are plenty of ways to connect with ABCG. We have a social media presence. If you haven't joined our listserv, that's the best way to find out about events like these. It's also where we share resources. Those people who registered for the event today will receive a follow-up email with a webinar recording and slide presentation. And then if you have any questions, you can always contact me or my counterpart who's based in Nairobi. Yeah, feel free to say hi when you're coming through. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly, and we'll hear from Northern Rangelands.
So maybe we can just quickly go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. So I'm Kimberly.
Yep.
I'll introduce Tom in a minute, but just say your name and your organization.
My name is James Hutchins. I'm a consultant.
Eric Coppinger from African Wildlife Foundation.
Carol Brown, Humane Society International / Humane Society United States.
David Williams, African Wildlife Foundation.
Gabriel Levin, Conservation International.
John Probert, Pangles.
Mila Ariel Marian, African Wildlife.
Kayla Sandel of African Wildlife Foundation.
Trinity Northern Rangelands Trust.
Mike Harrison, NRT.
Rover, NRT.
Chair Mohammed Almi, Chair NRT.
Vice Chairperson NRT.
Lalampaa, NRT.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff's top 10 NRT.
Okay. All right, and Tom is sitting right there, and thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for everybody who's here today and those that have joined us online. It's great to see all of you. It's a real pleasure to be able to introduce Tom Lalampaa, the CEO of the Northern Rangelands Trust. I was trying to think back to when I first met you, Tom, and I think it was several years ago in New York, maybe. We were there for some important meetings, and I remember that as we were trying to get from one meeting to another, navigating the streets of New York, Tom was always just so calm and smiling and just an amazing companion in that trip. And it's great to see where you are now. So Tom comes from Westgate Community Conservancy. He was the first person in his family that went to school, and that includes not just secondary and primary school, but also the University of Nairobi, where he received a bachelor's degree and then 2 master's degrees. He joined NRT in 2006 and quickly moved up to become chief program coordinator, and then chief operations manager, and early last year he became the CEO of the Northern Rangelands Trust. Tom is the recipient of 2 prestigious awards, including the Tusk Conservation Award in 2013 and the Stanford Bright Award for Environmental Sustainability in 2016. And I believe you have also met President Obama back in 2015 when he went to Kenya for his visit. And I know that you were part of a civil society discussion then talking about environmental issues in Kenya. So please join me to welcome Tom Lalampaa.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you for having us here to meet. It's really a good opportunity. We hardly come to such capital cities in the world. So thank you very much. Secondly, I think just listening to the presentation, I feel that as an organization, as Northern Rangelands Trust, we're in the right place. We are about collaboration. We are very well aware that we all don't have the resources that we all desire, and also the capacities and the expertise. And so, but coming together, we can do more. Very briefly, biodiversity. Growing up in the village, for me, and with my indigenous hat on, community hat on, conservation for the villager in Africa, is, what does it mean? It means the perception has been that conservation, biodiversity protection, is government-driven, it's donor-driven, Western-driven, donor-funded. And the feeling in the village, within the rural communities, is that it excludes, the communities feel excluded from conservation and conservation protection. It's about exclusion. The feeling was that, those years back, was that conservation had no people face or human face. It was about boots, it was about pushing people out. And that has been the impression growing up. And still, in parts of Africa, that's still the thinking. And that's the heart. And that's the cross we carry as conservation sometimes in some of the community sectors down there. It's a reality on the ground. But I think the narrative is changing slowly. For those who have been in Kenya, very briefly, if I walk through the quick presentation, the land in Kenya is divided into 3 categories. We've got public land, we've got private and communal lands. And within the private, anything can be happening within private lands. There could be private conservancies, there could be private ranching, and they are sort of well managed. On the public land, you will still have some formal protected areas. The national parks we know, the national reserves we know. They are being managed by the government authorities, but pretty much they're becoming very isolated islands. A lot is happening, but pretty much outside the protected areas, the formal protected areas, and even outside the private protected areas, very little is happening. These private protected areas and government protected areas border community lands, and very little is happening outside there within the community land. And the repercussions has been that there's been a lot of pressure into these protected areas, a lot of pressure into it. And so we constantly see a lot of degradation, we see a lot of invasion, we see a lot of poaching, we see a lot of bushmeat, we see a lot of charcoal, we see a lot of some of those things that conservationists, traditional sense don't feel that are not good. But the reality is that the person outside the fence there feels excluded, feels that they're not part of. We are not part of this protected landscape. And so you just become a problem child, it's not you, you're not part of it. Well, outside there, within the community landscape, there are massive opportunities. And just to say that as an organization, as Northern Rangelands Trust, we saw the opportunity within those community landscapes. And the organization was formed by local communities 2004 to support community-based driven model that's owned and driven and led by the local communities themselves. And as an organization, we just provide oversight, we provide support, but pretty much the implementation is done by the local community. And these communities border the protected areas. And so some of the community conservancies that we work border these protected areas. They border the national reserves, border the national parks, some of them border private ranching, and they're just doing very well right now because it's about creating linkages. So we saw an opportunity in that, and that's our space. Our space, as we speak, is working with the local communities, creating community-led institutions that will give them the pride that they can manage these resources. But conservation will never be a standalone. It has to be tied with some livelihoods. It has to have the human face. It has to have the community face. And it has to create that platform where communities can talk and the partnership, people can talk. And so back to my presentation, we work in a landscape of northern Kenya, currently covering about 7% of the country, landmass. We work both in the terrestrial and also, the model has also now been replicated in the marine with our partners. And just listening to all of you in the room, we work with all of you, all your organizations and as colleagues in the field. So just looking at the landscape where we work currently, it's about the natural world. It's about wildlife. Massive. Everything is free ranging for those who have been traveling in Africa and in Kenya in particular. There are no fences. And so livestock and wildlife, it's just all free ranging. But in essence, about getting them coordinated. It's about people. It's about species that are just about to go extinct, like the Irolas. There are probably less than 400 individuals left in the world. And the community is quite passionate. They like for the Irola, I'll talk later, the government is now organizing walks to create awareness. And it's really about the marine, getting the model in the terrestrial and see how it can work within the marine. It's about institutions, it's about people. It's about peace and security. Yeah, kind of. Some of these technologies, the ones we're used to there. And so who are we as an umbrella membership support organization? We're really about developing resilient community conservancies that transforms lives, secure peace, and conserve natural resources. For us, it's about resilience of communities. And when we hear about the community conservancies, it's not the traditional biodiversity that we know. It's an integrated rural development approach that integrates natural resources by the local community. So it's about resilient community conservancies that first and foremost transforms lives of those indigenous, of those rural communities. Not the life of Tom, but the lives of those local communities. Securing peace, which is so precious to most of us in the north where we can, and finally conserve the natural resources. And we try to transform the life of the people based around resources, whether it's through a dam, water, or through businesses, or through connection to the natural world. Currently, NRT supports 39 community conservancies across 10 counties in Kenya. Kenya has 47 counties, but we're currently working about 10 of them. And the conservancy covers about 4.2 hectares of landscape. And what you see here is all community lands. And these are all community conservancies registered as institutions with elected local boards from the different villages, with the private sector involved, with the NGOs participating there, and with the government representation also sitting there. Different ethnicities, of course, and it's really about bringing them to through dialogue so that they're able to talk, they're able to communicate, they're all connected on a VHF radio, and they're talking, they're communicating with each other. Challenges are massive. As we are all aware, climatic challenges are becoming real. I think within our community initiative, it was like, it's just a bad omen, it was just a bad year. Now I think we're just realizing that it's no longer about bad years. It's just the reality that's now dawning on us. And conflict has been part of us for many reasons, either related to resources, water, pasture, and or just ethnicity. Every year we do a state of conservancy report. We've got various indicators that we develop with our partners, and we look at it, what we need to measure, and basically we do across a year. And just speaking of some of these, some few ones, for the 2018 State of Conservancy Impact Report, tourism was up by about 31%. You know, that's northern Kenya, and these are revenues that goes to the communities. It doesn't come to NRT. We don't do tourism. It's the local communities that do tourism, but we just keep an eye and support those relationships with our tour operators. And the other things about also the rural population is a very rare antelope. As I did mention, we partnered with the county governments and Kenya Wildlife Service and the local communities to build a breeding sanctuary for the community, and the numbers are just going up from 48 individuals now to about 130. And we're looking at partnerships, actually with part of the organizations we're talking to see whether, because the breeding sanctuary has become small, and we want to grow that population to about 600 so that they can be released. And so it's just about really extending just the existing sanctuary to the neighboring community conservancy so that they're able to breed more and then populate. Jobs are being created, permanent jobs, just over 1,200. Elephant poaching still continue to go down. I remember 2012, we lost about, just within the landscape of the conservancies, we lost about 138 elephants. That was 2012. Last year, we lost 3. And these are the elephants that we can't trace. The ivory has gone to the market. And so we attribute that to communities. There are a lot of ears, there are a lot of roots, there are a lot of eyes on the ground, and communities are talking. And so that just provides a lot of support. There's a lot of mangrove restorations down in the coastal parts of the Lamu. Elephant Sanctuary, the first one, owned and run by the communities in East Africa, has just been established in one of the community conservancies, run and managed by the local communities. It's got about 14 calves now. And these are calves that are collected from who fall into the deep wells because of lack of water. So they become very thirsty, and so they just go into the wells. Their mothers have been killed either because of conflict or other factors. So they've been cared, and I think 3 of them are getting to the wild, being introduced in 3 days or so. A bit of businesses coming up on matters of financial assets. We're talking about northern Kenya, where financial assets is quite limited. And the team here, like veterans, are working to develop community circles. So within the conservancy, you can implement a multi-sector approach. Because it's about people. People live in those conservancies. These are community land. And they need education, they need health, they need water, they need financial assets, they need livelihood support. And so you implement conservation, but at the same time, you're implementing massive livelihood programs. As an organization, we work on a 5-year strategic plan, and it's such that our strategic plan emanates from the community conservancies that we work with. We also consult with the county governments, we consult with all our partners. And so the strategy, the views really and the needs come from the local communities. and then we just amalgamate it into the NRT. But essentially, again, every conservancy have their own plan. They call it conservancy management plan, developed by the communities. And typically, most of the time, you'll find that some of the issues that are within the NRT strategy are also within their conservancy management plan, because they are the ones who inform our plan in terms of what they expect from NRT. We currently operate on a 2018 to 2022 strategy, which has got 4 big objectives: governance, peace and security, livelihoods for the communities and businesses, and natural resources. We are really looking at resilience for local communities and the natural world. And for us, the bottom line is really about good community governance. It's about getting community governance right through institutions, their own local institutions, so that they have their boards, local boards, they have their grazing committees, they have their peace committees, they have their finance committees, they have their various committees, they have a manager, every meeting is recorded, their plans are moving forward. And that governance in itself becomes the heart of everything. Because through good governance, if the community is well structured and the governance is right, you'll be in a better position to deliver peace and security. You'll be able to deliver livelihoods and businesses, and you'll be able to deliver on natural resources. Because it's not about us, it's about them delivering. We just provide support together with our partners. Looking at the constitution, just looking at the relevance of NRT to the wider, because as an organization, we must look at the relevance of our model to the Kenyan context because we are Kenyan. And so when you look at the constitution, it really resonates with our constitution for almost all the things we do. The community land law, which was signed by the president in 2016, was really informed by the model of the conservancy, community conservancy, because it looks at grazing rights, it looks at everything, it looks at partnership, and so it really helped to inform. Ending drought emergencies, really informed. County government, we are now on a devolved, second term of a devolved government. So we've got, in Kenya, we've got national government, and then we've got devolved government, which are about 47. And so we are working. Whatever the conservancies are doing, and whatever NRT is implementing through the conservancies, really helps to contribute to the attainment of the county integrated development plans. And so everything is matching. And the conservancy plans helps to inform the county government strategy. Wildlife law, the one we're using currently in the country, signed 2013, was majorly also informed through this model. We started this model without any law. And I remember some of the partners initially telling us in 2004, 2006, so how do we fund something that's not even provided in law? We just pleaded, the likes of TNC will just support it. They say, let's carry on. The law will catch up with us. And that was the reality. The law finally, properly, the law that is quite supportive, finally, came to be. And looking at the country Vision 2030, it really aligns. And so just really looking at the governance, because for us it's the heart of it. We support communities, these conservancies, to make sure that they are well governed. We've got a council of elders that brings the chairpersons of all the 39 conservancies and the county governments and other partners, meeting twice a year. We discuss about cross-cutting issues across the landscape, and we talk about the importance of good governance. Boards are elected on a 3-year term of office. We make sure that they go through leadership and management trainings, almost 5 modules, just to build them. These are elders who have not gone to school. These are women. These are youth. Some of them haven't gone to school, but they will be in a better position to supervise a master's graduate who is a conservancy manager, and look at their budget lines, and look at their cash flow, and implement their programs. And we also work very closely with the government to see to it that there are, within the county level and also nationally, there are legislative or policies that are supportive. And currently, our county governments are really developing legislation that supports, and even nationally, a lot is happening really. Peace for us in the north. Just for communities, it doesn't make sense to have the elephants have peace. We protect the elephants, and the communities have no peace. So essentially for us, peace and security is paramount for both our wildlife, for people, for our properties, because essentially in the north, as most of you will be aware, we've got major challenges. One being livestock theft or raids. We raid each other's cattle. They don't break banks. There are billions and billions of money in the banks. But they will go for a skinny cow, and that doesn't worth even $100 or 20. But they take it, they value. And so livestock raids in one tribe to another is quite common for us. It used to be at thousands, hundreds, now that's pretty much into 20 or 10 heads of cattle. Highway banditry has been a big issue for obvious reasons. A lot of illegal firearms, as you are aware. Poaching, tourist attack has been an issue. But right now, because of the network of community conservancies, we're able to provide that platform and those structures to create a dialogue within our communities. And the moment the area becomes stable, everybody will be at peace, and other developments, other NGOs are coming on board, private sector is coming up as we stabilize our landscape. And so we've got a lot of programs on peace building. And so in as much as we're talking about conservancies, we're building other community programs around these conservancies, delivering peace. We're using community conservancy model to deliver peace and security. We're using community conservancy model to strengthen good governance, and we're using it to support other things. Women, we have just brought women really to the fore on matters of peace building. Women don't go and steal people's cattle. Women don't go and hit the vehicles on the road. Women hardly go and push. Women don't break banks. Don't hit tourists. But essentially, we realize they play a very key role. They know what's happening. And so now, under Josephine, with a massive peace building where they're bringing women on board from across the landscape, and they're becoming the ears and ears on the ground. They let us know what's happening, and we can quickly catch the situation. It's not to say that we have eradicated security in the north. It's not yet, but things are getting better for our communities. Livelihoods and businesses. Conservation must touch people for us. We believe that conservation is about people, first and foremost. And it can touch people in various ways. We are working to invest into community projects that benefits them. Really, in terms of when you look at livelihoods, we raise funds from our partners. We put on a pool, which we call Community Conservancy Livelihood Fund. And the conservancies apply annually. Others, and we look at the innovativeness of the proposals. And the funds are approved, and it goes to them, and they implement. Some of them are doing tourism bundles. Some of them are doing motor engines for fishing that can take them away from the shore a little bit deeper, so that they close some areas. Some of them are doing pumps just to do their agricultural work a little bit far from the riparian vegetation, far from the rivers. Some of them are doing massive things. Others are doing dormitories. Others are doing clinics, dispensaries for women. Some of them are doing water projects. Some of them, it's just a lot. Whether some of them are doing education, bursaries, scholarships, but we just watch. And that really touches the communities. You can't tell a community member, that's just conserve. Conserve for who? You don't tell an angry person that just keep conserving. You have to tie conservation, build other development projects around it. Because we must go commerce, we must think about sustainability. We must think about driving these communities to think about alternatives. We've gone further to register another entity we call NRT Trading. That's an independent commercial arm with a board, with a CEO, with a team. And their role is to go to all these 39 community conservancies, scratch the surface, sit with the elders, sit with the women, and explore what potential business opportunities are there to benefit either individual households or community. And so they pilot a lot of things. The beadworks now. If you need any dog collar, please don't buy from elsewhere. Buy from the women in the north, and many other businesses. They are doing beadwork, they are doing circles for savings and credit, livestock to market. We're trying to structure livestock to market, supplementary feeder lots for cattle, and demonstrate to pastoralists that instead of keeping your steer for 30 years, You can keep it for 3 years, and it will give you the exact money that it will give you after 25 years. So you better keep it for 3 years, stack it in the market, and do other things. Mangoes market for farming communities, and fish markets. Where that team, that commercial company within NRT is really just trying to see what can be done. Because again, we are majorly donor dependent on a 2-year grant that comes. It's a cliff every year, like that. And we have to see to it that communities. It's about sustainability. It's about growing commercial income by these communities, and some of them are doing quite well right now. Just near to graduate and be independent financially, but we can just support them on other. So this becomes a key pillar for us. The fourth objective, as I mentioned, the strategy is really about sustainable natural resources. And in it here, we talk about rangelands, sustainable rangeland management. Majority of our community conservancies are pastoralists, livestock keepers, cattle keepers. And the rangelands have been poorly managed for many years. And essentially what that means is that we've continued to suffer from severe degradation of the rangelands, of grassland. So the rangelands are becoming as bare as these tables. And what that means is that it translates to conflict, because our movement now becomes, we're running all over the place. And so essentially, we are working with the communities to try and restore those rangelands. It's not about trying to migrate everywhere. Let's concentrate to improve the productivity of that landscape. A lot is happening. We're doing a lot of informed behavior change, where you're trying to use cartoons, which are quite interactive. We're trying to do rangeland rehabilitation, because of degradation, the invasive plant species have really colonized the area. And so we're also trying to work with other partners, US Forest Service, everybody. Someone with a knowledge can come and help us and look at how we can tackle the invasive plant species. Some good progress is being done. It's not quite an area of our expertise, but we get partners to help. So a lot is happening there, making sure that all those conservancies as a rangeland management committee of elders will look at the health of the rangelands. Marine. As I mentioned, the model has really just worked very well in the market. Because in every island, in most of the islands, you remember that islands are operated based on beach management or communities, beach management units. But every beach management is just here and here. They're not talking to each other. And so essentially, when they learn the model in the north, they say it works for us. The conservancy is going to be the umbrella for all the BMUs within that island. And so the chairpersons of all the BMUs form the conservancy board, so that we make our decisions here, it goes directly to, and we standardize everything around those BMUs. And so the model is working. There's a lot of coral reef monitoring. There's a lot of mangrove restoration. Again, it's not our area of specialty. We are talking to WWF is helping. The Nature Conservancy is bringing expertise. Some of us are used to bathing on a basin, and so taking me to those marine and those who deep seas, we are not. Despite being a CEO, it's not my work. And so I better get partnered, and that's why I like the idea of collaborative, because we can do it together, where we don't have expertise. We're getting others. We're looking at beach health, all the beach cleaning up and what they recycle, what they do. We're getting others, that bring technology on desalinization of, the water is quite salty, and it becomes an income generating for the conservancy at an affordable fee, and they use those funds to pay for the rangers. They use those funds to support conservation, protect the logging, and that sort of thing. Forestry is also falling within these objectives. Because a lot of forestry, they really need a lot of management by the community conservancies that are bordering it. Again, it's not an area of specialty. We're looking for partnerships, people with science, people with background that can help us. And we develop some programs around it and that sort of thing. And so it's really massive. Species, wildlife. Wildlife is also falling here. We've got teams within the program that looks into species recovery. For the first time now, we've got black rhino right into the community conservancies. In one of the conservancies called Sarah, the numbers were 10, now there are 15, and we got the elephant sanctuary species recovering, it's going on. Irola antelope, the most endangered, is coming up. The Rothschild giraffe numbers, I think they're also looking. And within these conservancies, they have a wildlife monitoring tool, simple for them. They know how to use it. We just help them to aggregate and look at the trends. And based on the trend, you can tell what's happening. But you simplify it so that they're able to monitor. most of these areas, some of them we have some expertise, some of them we don't. And collaborative is that we're just not looking for financials. We're also looking at expertise where we can support each other, and which is really great if you can do that. And this was a beautiful hirola that the county government of Garissa is organizing a walk, a 240-kilometer walk, just to create awareness. And so pretty much what I see from the model is that the model provides a good platform to deliver not just conservation, not just biodiversity, but multi-sector. Because the moment you pursue conservation as a standalone, sometimes I talk to a friend, a good friend of mine, a cousin, who is he works for a lion recovery program. I see, it's not enough to chase a single lion wherever they go. You need to look at the habitat. You need to look at the whatever they feed on. It's a complete thing, and it's quite holistic. And so that's the model we are using. It can be replicated elsewhere. The government is quite supportive about it, and the local communities like it, because it's just not about conservation. It's about delivering education. It's about health. It's about financial assets. It's about community development. It's about protection as well. But basically, we are flipping it and make sure that the local communities are the ones doing it, and they own it, and the land belongs to them. And we can use conservation and build all other developments around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes for questions. So we'll take some first in the room, and then I'll open it up to those folks online. We've got about 18 people online. And if you could, well, we've introduced ourselves, but you can just remind us where you're coming from again.
Please go.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. What approach does NRT take to get the communities involved?
What it costs or what it involves. And do it so the NRT, anybody can respond. I didn't get it, please.
What approach do you take to get the communities involved?
Right. For our case, typically, we receive applications from the communities. First and foremost, we want to get involved, and we get a lot of applications. Now we're under pressure to support more and expand. And so once we get the application, typically it goes to the NRT Council of Elders, which is an assembly of all the other chairpersons of conservancies and government. And the county, and we present it. They look at it, we talk about the landscape, and of course we understand the landscape a little bit, so we can tell a little bit about the biodiversity issues. And then typically the council will form a task force with the Council of Elders to go and visit that community, what's the interest, what's the motive, and they try and understand the biodiversity issues, who are the partners, any issues, and they have a template where they can sort of read, and then they compile their reports. It comes back into the council the following council meeting, and if they happen to be selected, and again we have to look at the resources available, then we write back to them, and then we have to get started with the government. We have to go jointly with other partners and really create awareness on what they're trying to look at, and and build awareness and what it means. A conservancy is just a community institution to deliver all these other things, and it has to be a conservancy for us because it has to do with land at the end of the day. And so every community knows where their land, boundaries. It doesn't mean that anybody is restricted to come through. You can just still go as usual, but everybody knows the space where they operate on. And then once that has been done, the feedback has been done, community awareness has been done, and registration has been done as just to formalize it, and a board of that community, depending on village settlements, they're selected. It's about them and their political leadership on board. The rest is trainings, and and again we have to get into a partnership MOU that just clarifies our roles and their roles and just manage expectations. So we have to do. And we do a 3-year MOU just to clarify our role. Our role is oversight. We'll have to raise funds where we can, blah, blah, blah. And then, they start getting operations and they run their books of accounts. And if the donor, if you get a donor funds, they come through NRT and it hits the accounts of all the 39 community conservancies. They do their bills, they're audited, the reports come back, it's amalgamated here, cuts the costs, transaction costs, and then it goes to the donors. So it is a process. Initially, it used to take us, in the early years, probably about 5 to 6 years to get it really right. But currently, because there are already existing communities where they can learn from, through an exposure, it's good to get them to go and visit other communities. Just send them, let them just go and interact and talk. Let them talk the language they know better. That has really helped to shorten the duration, probably about 2 years, when we up and running. Then they have to be independent. They have to know that they're autonomous, they're independent, and other partners can work through them just to deliver whatever they want. So it's just not the NRT alone. We get other partners that just come through them, deliver whatever they want to deliver. So it just becomes a good entry point for other development partners and also for the government to do it because they're quite credible. They're audited, they do their governance right, they do their annual general meetings, they spread their jobs, they plan rangeland, whatever they want to do. So it takes time really, but it requires a lot of patience. You might go 10 steps and then you go another 10 back all of a sudden, but you just have to be patient and just appreciate that. It's a community. But once you get it right, once they stabilize it, just. And the other thing now for us, there are 39, we're looking at probably up to 50, is that there's now a peer. They are now sort of competing in terms of who is doing well, who is generating more revenue, who is managing the rangelands better. And every year we do a governance score, and we give an award to the best overall of the year 2018, most improved, best manager that has raised funds or have managed this. And so currently they're looking at each other and there's a bit of a peer. And there's no secret. Your audit report will be shared across all the rest, so they'll know that you didn't do well. And, you'll see your improvement. So it takes time, but, it's just accepting that there are challenges there. It's not perfect 100%. Yeah. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, maybe to add on what Tom has said and also what he presented is about community. Before I said from NRT, but from one of the conservancies called NRT Conservancy. It's a member conservancy, or one of the member conservancies for NRT. For us, for example, can I give our example is we learned about conservancies from our neighbors. And we live to adjacent the parks, the two parks, national reserves in Isiolo County. And for us, our objective was about peace because we have been fighting over land, over natural resources. So when we learned about conservancies from our neighbors, we said, okay, why don't we use this approach to bring us together, to manage these resources, than fighting over these resources, and we end up dying all of us because we have lost many people, and we end up even not using those resources during drought, even during when we need it. At the same time, there was poaching was very high in our region. Poachers were killing the elephants. Also, as we were killing the other wildlife for livelihood because we never knew the wildlife belongs to us. So we saw the wildlife like it's for government, so it was not our responsibilities. So when we came to learn about the importance of this wildlife from other communities, we said, okay, why are we leaving other people using us to kill this wildlife? And yet, we are fighting over this land, we're fighting over these resources, we don't benefit, we just destroying ourselves. So why don't we ask for somebody to assist us to at least conserve this wildlife? For me, from the conservancy that I'm coming from is, what is a conservancy? You ask me what is a conservancy? It's about management of our resources, peacefully consistent within ourselves and our wildlife and our resources. Nothing like either land is taken away or anything. No, it's about managing everything inside here, securing land for the wildlife. Where there were corridors, let corridors be there, let respect, let this wildlife come across here peacefully. But sometimes there's when people are asking, even if I give peace to this elephant, what is the benefit? There's when we talk about livelihood alternative. And killing this giraffe, so what is an alternative? People want to see. That's why we talk about tourism. For job, for employment, job opportunities. That's when we talk about we need peace. Without the peace between among these communities, or with our neighbors, either within our area. So we need peace. If there is no peace, wildlife are in threat. Why? Because during those conflicts, our people use rations, kill elephant for rations, for protection. Number two, our people, when regrouping in the bush, while going to attack, planning to attack other people, no other food except these other wildlife, they will kill for the food, for them to prepare to go for the raid. That's why we have to talk about peace. If there is peace in that land, even the wildlife will have peace, and other things will happen. That's why we talk about, if now, yes, we want this wildlife, we want our livestock, because we are pastoralists. We need this our livelihood, because pastoralism is our livestock. It's our future also. So what else? We need the land to be rehabilitated. We need pasture. We need water. That's why we talk about rangeland management, where we talk about planning our grazing and also rehabilitating the degraded land and talking other things. So for me, if we talk about conservancy, it's about everything that will form my life future.
Question, please?
Please go ahead.
Can you talk about the engagement that NRT has had with communities outside of the organization, as well as sort of sharing lessons learned maybe with communities in other countries outside Kenya? Has there been much of that sort of interaction and engagement?
It's a good question, because communities really talk. Even if you're working in this community, they are talking with another. You're living in this community and your cousin is like miles and miles away, and so there's a bit of talking. We are trying to talk with everybody. We're trying to talk with the community. We've got some communities within the north. That's why we're under pressure to support more and to expand, because communities want to join. But we are talking. We have developed a guide, to guide the process of establishing a community conservancy, and we have shared. I know Samburu County government also used the manual guide we developed to establish additional community conservancies, which is good. We get a lot of visitation. There's a lot of exchange that's happening in Africa. From Rwanda. From Namibia, Ethiopia. We're all talking, and we're visiting. We're like this, just trying to look for lessons, which is a good thing. So we're trying to talk. Sometimes we go to Uganda, we share experiences. Sometimes they come from whatever, and we're looking at possibly if we support come our way to sort of do a conservation center in one of the very strategic conservancies, so that we can share our experiences to other African countries and the globe, so that whoever wants to take on the model, they can with tweaks, and we can share experiences. And so we are actually talking. We actually, for Kenya, the south, we're talking with the north, and there's a lot of interaction. We go to the south, we help them to structure. There's also something we look at them, we admire them in some areas. It doesn't work in our areas. And so we are talking really, and we are quite open. It's just that we're limited also in terms of capacity. Yes. But
Just to add on,
please, yeah.
Also, we're engaging leaders, be they political leaders that have their constituency behind them, have actually been engaging quite a lot the political leadership, because then they become sort of our link to their constituents. We also have been having very good relationship with the former provincial administration or the county administration or national government. As you know, we have two levels of government that through the new constitution, and Tom has presented how then that is really linking to the work of NRT. So we have the national government represented through, what was formerly known as the provincial and county administration, where we have county commissioners and all the way to the local administration, basically the chiefs and what have you. And these people we have very good relationships with, and the idea is then to show them, to make a case for community conservation as, something that would bring peace, something that would bring livelihoods, something that would, give people self-governance and services to the household level. So through all these different engagements, and we look at ourselves as a partner organization. So these are some of the ways in which we have been able to reach the communities through their leadership and through also the administration, but also just being good citizens of the places that we occupy as well, and by example and through modeling these results and leaving the people are starting to see value through the actions and the governance and all these things that he has. So this is ways in which, and now of course internationally, but also within the country, they are what we consider biodiversity hotspot or rich areas of the south of parts that have actually. We also belong to the Kenya Wildlife, conservation. So through all these different, there's not a single organization or strategic partner within the country that NRT doesn't work with, because we realize it's a collaborative effort. So this is some ways in which communities are reached, but also the way we are dealing with people that are not necessarily our members or our conservancies as well.
Hey, we've got a couple of folks online who'd like to ask a question, so I'm going to unmute everybody. And your microphone may still be muted on your end. It looks like we have a question from Kiran from Conservation International and from Lynn. So if either of you want to pose those.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just commenting on how great a presentation it was, and really thank you very much for all the information. And I was just curious, kind of as from the impact investing perspective, we're actively looking for opportunities to make investments that deliver both conservation impact as well as market returns. And specifically related to the northern rangelands, I would be just interested to hear kind of more of your kind of perspective on what kind of business models and opportunities exist there, particularly around the small and medium enterprises, not so much microfinance, but around the kind of the small and medium enterprise space in the northern rangelands.
Right. Well, thank you very much. As I mentioned, we go the Northern Rangeland Trust, and then we go the Northern Rangeland Company. I happen to have the chair. Dr. Mike Harrison is the chair of NRT Trading, the commercial arm. Mike, do you mind responding to?
Yeah, that's a delightful question. And if you've got some impact investment funds, we know exactly where we can put them for you. So please let's get in touch after this. There's a number of businesses that NRT Trading was set up specifically for the purpose of looking for conservation enterprise. And we do this by, as we say, getting in the ring. So we're actually involved in the market. And we've structured this around three kinds of businesses. One, which are standalone businesses, which NRT Trading itself can manage. And then once they're sustainable and effective, they can be effectively sort of spawned off, if that's the right word, and become standalone businesses. And we've got one well represented by Beatrice in the group here. Maybe she'll say something about that, which is the Beadworks enterprise, which, as it happens, is looking for a $350,000 investment to help it scale up. So if you can help us with that, please talk to us. That's one really good example. There's another one, which is a cattle trading business, which we run, which is we buy preferentially cattle from well-governed conservancies at a bit of a premium price. There's a levy which goes to the conservancy from which the cattle came, so the conservancy itself is earning some revenue from that. And that's putting a huge amount of revenue into the local from these conservancies. That's just about washing its face as a business. It's quite a struggle. Those distances are far, the markets are tight, there are various other business constraints. Then there are businesses that we help to incubate that are where the conservancies themselves are the primary beneficiaries, and principally this is around tourism. So our role as NRT Trading is to help to broker agreements between tourism investors and the conservancies themselves. So we don't run tourism businesses, professional operators do, but there's a lease agreement with the conservancies themselves, and they get gate fees from this. And that's currently the biggest commercial revenue earner for the communities through tourism. And then there's a third suite of businesses, which are sort of micro businesses at the household level. And eligible for support on those are only those communities that are living in conservancies. And that's principally run through a savings and cooperative scheme, which the conservancies run. We help to facilitate and enable the running of that savings and credit scheme, and then provide small business training, connections with markets, artisanal support, and so on. But maybe I'll ask Beatrice to say a bit about Beadworks, because that's a very successful, one of the successful businesses.
Okay, thank you, Mike. As mentioned by Mike, is that we have a Beadworks business, which is basically a social enterprise that works with pastoral women within these community conservancies. And our role is basically to link them up to the market. And at the end of the day, is teaching these women to utilize their skills to be able to earn an income to support their families and also support their conservancy. The idea of Beadworks is to teach them the basic business principles, basically helping them be able to produce quality products that international market and also local market is able to uptake and utilize. So as it is right now, we are able to produce things that go to Australian markets, the US market. So basically it tells you that it's really, really quality products, which are all handmade in the villages. So it's not a factory setup. That gives the women the opportunity to be able to work in their families, in their communities, but at the same time, be able to do business. So these are entrepreneurs within their communities. One unique thing is, again, is the potential. We have so many women out there who are able to do this. And of course, as mentioned, is we have market limitations, and of course, we also have to go through the processes of improving their capacities, their qualities, and all that. So these are all the things that we also need to work out. But as it is now, we have a network of entrepreneurs within the North that are willing and are able to participate in the market. So, yeah.
And so I reckon in principle, the opportunities are there.
We have two more questions, one from Lynn. Is Lynn still on the line?
Well, sorry, I knew this was going to happen.
I can hear you very faintly. If you can come a little closer to the mic.
Can you hear me? Why don't you come back to me?
Okay. And then we have guest 2, who has a couple of questions for Tom.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. Mwapesi Chilongo from Lusaka, Zambia. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very clear, yes.
Thank you. Mwapesi Chilongo from the Southern African Floodplains Regional Manager of the International Crane Foundation and Endangered Wildlife Trust Partnership. The program that Rich talked about in the previous presentation, focusing on the Kafue Flats. Thank you, Tom, for that very, very interesting presentation. There are a lot of similarities with the challenges and institutional issues we have to deal with on the Kafue Flats. I wanted your comments on a couple of them. The first one is that the program sounds quite complex in scope. So if you can just comment on the sort of capacity and budgets that you work with to run such a diverse and widespread program. The second point is that when you say that conservancies are managed by the communities, what does community management actually look like in practice? And I say this because for us, that's one of the biggest challenges we face. How do you empower communities to do on their own? And my last point is a comment on security of tenure for all those investments that are going on. I'm assuming that this is communal land, if I heard you properly. How is the situation in terms of competition from other land uses, particularly large-scale infrastructure development? Thank you very much. And again, thank you for an inspiring presentation.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. On the side of the first question about complexities of the conservancies in terms of capacity and budgets, we invest a lot in building the capacity of the conservancies. Essentially, a conservancy could cover 120,000 hectares of communal land. They will have a title, or they will just have a customary right to land and that sort of thing. And so basically, it's registered as a community institution. The conservancy for us is a community institution registered with the government. It can be registered as a not-for-profit company. It can be registered as a trust, just to give them that institutional structure. And every conservancy has a democratically elected board of the local communities based on settlement areas or villages. And once that board has been elected, we train them on leadership and management. We have invested a lot into some leadership management modules just to improve their capacity. Alongside that, every conservancy within the board have some subcommittee. They have a subcommittee of finance that are also further trained on finance, on budgeting, on to the extent that they're able to look at their audits and able to look at their cash flow, and there are other committees. But just to come to the finance and the budgeting is such that all the boards, all the committees, be they finance or tourism, they meet on a quarterly basis. For our case, it's a standard. They meet on a quarterly basis. They look at their plan. So the finance committee of a conservancy, being comprised of elders and women, some have gone to school, some have not, but they have an accountant for that conservancy. They sort of, assuming during the budgeting process, they develop a draft budget as a subcommittee, a finance subcommittee. That draft budget, annual budget, is presented by the finance subcommittee to the full board of the conservancy. And within the board of the conservancy, there are other ex-officio or institutional members to the community conservancy board. You'll have any other, like, there has to be government representation, there has to be any private sector representation, there has to be any other NGO or development partners there, because it's nothing confidential, really, it's just about budgeting. And so the budget is again further discussed at the full board of that conservancy. And so once it's discussed, they clearly manage their budget in terms of their incomes. They do the overall budget, they look at their incomes, and then they definitely show their deficits. And based on their deficits, they will send that budget, including a proposal to NRT, where we look at it further, we scrutinize it further, basically. The conservancies at initiations, at the early stages, cost probably about, because there's a lot of infrastructure, capital, headquarters, vehicles, probably cost about 200 to 250,000 a year on year one. And then it starts to tail off a little bit to about probably 150,000 a year to operate, depending on size. And so they really have to, they raise their own funds where they can, very, very minimal, I'm sure. But all their revenues are also there. And every revenue earned, they normally split into 60-40, assuming. 60% going to community development account, where they do their scholarships, bursaries, whatever. And then 40% is plowed back to support their conservancy operations, their rangers, their monitoring, their buying new vehicles, and then we support. So it's a partnership. We provide an oversight into their budgets, but pretty much they manage their budgets. And they get audited, they meet quarterly, they look at their cash flow, They look at their bank statements. And so we make them to be independent a little bit, to run their own affairs. And so we keep an eye on that. And in case there's any misuse or leakages, we can always raise. But pretty much we like them to own the process of budgeting and implementing their own budget. If they falter, we'll know. Let them learn by doing. What the communities really manage. For our case, the communities through their boards and through their managers, because every conservancy have a graduate or master's conservancy manager. It could be from that local community or from outside, depending on the age of the conservancy. They have their own staff, they have their own accountants, they have their own headquarters, they have their own other staff, Rangelands, so they're quite an institution, independent on their own. And so based on that, they have their, let's say, they call it Conservancy Management and Development Plan, 5-year, 10-year, and from where they extract their annual work plans. And so within their work plans, you will see issues about rangelands management, you should see things about enterprise development, you see things about peace, you see things about a lot of programs. And they run with it. And the conservancy manager reports to their board, to the board of that conservancy. And so they manage their finances, they manage their assets as well, because they have vehicles, they have an asset register where they manage their payrolls, they manage their programs, and they deliver their programs. And we have taken it to the level that is up to staff performance appraisals. And these conservancy managers are getting, we are there as also NRT, and they report to their board. So pretty much they manage their assets, they manage their land, they manage their landscape. And ourselves as NRT, we're just an enabler, we're just a support organization. We look at the managers as well. We make sure that they're well trained, they're well exposed. And also all the conservancy managers meet twice a year. They meet twice a year to share their progress, and each one of them will hear from each other where the progress, where the challenges, and they can build each other. And we've also taken them, we take the conservancy managers through also leadership trainings, also to build them up. And of course, on an annual basis, we reward the best performing manager. And so there's a bit of also competition. Everybody wants to be the best manager. And so pretty much anything that happens within their landscape, whether it's a tourism investment, it's about them. They manage their grass, they manage their peace, they manage their programs. On matter of the security of tenure, some of them now currently have tourism facilities. And it's about partnership. And the current arrangement is, I've seen in the tourism about 3 within the conservancy that we support. One that we raise funds, philanthropic funds, and we help to build a facility that's owned by the community. And then I've seen a situation where the community conservancy wants to run it, and some of them have been running it on their own. But they don't seem to make a lot of money because hospitality industry is quite sensitive. Marketing is another hell, and so they don't make a lot of money. But it just builds a lot of pride that they are running their own tourism. They're making some little money, but we let them do what they want. We just keep an eye. And then the second is a situation where you can have a tourism facility, built through philanthropic funding through NRT, but the conservancy decides and says, no, we are unable to run, we can't run. We better get a professional tour operator, and let's advertise. Let's get a professional tour operator who comes and runs this facility. And they come and run. I've seen that arrangement making a lot of money, and a lot of money to the community because of the professional marketing, the industry and hospitality. And the third one I've seen really within our landscape association where an investor approaches a conservancy and invest and run over a period of time. We call it build, operate, and transfer if possible. Essentially, in such arrangement, every conservancy has a tourism subcommittee that just looks at that relationship. But NRT also helps in terms of guiding the agreements, in terms of making sure that the communities will get a rightful share, And we also make sure the government also sees it. It's very open. It has to go through an annual general community meeting. It's very transparent. And when it comes to the tenure, it depends on land. Majority of them are really currently, the ones I know, on communal land with a title, and have a title. And that way, we also look at the maturity of the conservancy. It takes time for you to get confidence that the governance is right. So they got their own title, and so they agree in terms of they must have first and foremost a management plan. That's very clear which area they're setting for their tourism and just their normal work, settlements and dressing and that sort of thing. So we haven't seen any major problem in terms of land tenure. Of course, the infrastructure is just catching up with us right now. But pretty much the community now have a voice because through the Conservancy institution, I've seen communities now being in a position to own their land. They just pursue and they work with the county government, they get a title for whatever it's a location or award. And so they get a voice. They are now able to say, no, we can't allow this to happen. We want this here, we want this on the other. We predominantly work in the north. It's a pastoral background. The community is predominantly a livestock, wildlife economy, so not much of farming or agricultural type, crop type. And so it really blends very well. The wildlife conservation and livestock management blends very well. But pretty much, as long as the community has a title to their land, I think they can always talk to any infrastructural development and say, this is what we want. But we also have challenges of some communities that have no title. There are minority communities down in Lamu where they're really threatened. Their land is really threatened because of the infrastructure development of coal and other stuff, or just the super highways. And so the communities look very vulnerable. But what the Conservancy does is really gives those communities a voice, just to speak out and say, guys, we're an institution, and this is what we want, and this is not what we want in terms of structure.
Okay, thank you. Got a bit over, so I think we'll leave it there. And thank you again, Tom, for your presentation.